hat on. That's why.
Well, I was gonna put on my St. Jerome's hat, but nobody knows what that'd be. And if they ask me, I have to say it's the team from San Jose.
Your hat's all crooked, man.
Well,
you guys are live.
What's that? I'm live?
Yep, you guys are live.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Roundtable on this Monday night, August the 30th. Big thunderstorm here, Andrea. So if the power
big noise, National Stadium, K-Bird Ruiz makes his first appearance with the bases loaded in the first inning. He took a strike on the inside corner, and then Casey at bat swung and hit a mighty pop fly to the third baseman.
That'll be fine. Look, I need to tell you something. This might be the first time Merle and I have done this without our trusted partner, Douglas. But I have to tell you, the two of us are from upstate New York, grew up about halfway between Syracuse and Watertown. And I have to tell you a story about Merle.
Oh, there aren't any stories about me. You're the one that got booted off WSGO for what you did.
Well, we'll take that up another time. But
that'll be fine.
Deal that Merle and I and our wives, our lovely wives, were in Boston, Mass. And we did a little drive-by at the Edward M. Kennedy Center for Legislative Affairs on the
Boston Harbor.
At which time they were carrying on a mock hearing in a room that was essentially identical to the Senate chamber, and it was Senate Bill 80-21, as I recall. And they briefed the viewers. There were probably 60 or 70 people in there, and they briefed the attendees on this legislation to give them a feel for how the Senate works. And they called on people to get up and make comments, and Merle got up and he said, "I want you to know that I'm a Senator Ernest Hollings from the great state of South Carolina, and I want you to know that regarding Senate Bill 80-21, we, the fine folks of South Carolina, certainly support any tightening of the procedures for immigration. We welcome folks if it's done legally. But I was down there in Sumter, South Carolina, having one of them focus group meetings with my constituents, and they said to me, well, Senator Hollings, we support this legislation, but we want you to put in an amendment, sir." And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "We want you, as concerned as we are about illegal immigration, we want to know what we can do to stop all this immigration that's coming in from these Yankees coming across the North Carolina border into the great state of South Carolina."
So, and I would say to the fair senator from the great Commonwealth of Virginia, it's time to throw the bums out.
Okay, let's get rolling on baseball. We won't talk about immigration, but Merle does this Ernest Hollings thing a lot better than I do because of that, how shall I say, mellifluous voice of his and whatnot. So let's get running on this thing, Merle, tonight. Let's talk about these September call-ups, and you have correctly stated that I think it's properly pronounced K-Bear Ruiz, although
it is K-Bear. Although interestingly enough, I was driving back into town today from being out, and you can find as many different pronunciations for K-Bear or Keybird or whatever the formulation would be, as you could find sports talk. He prefers to have himself called K-Bear. Okay. Hosea Gray prefers to be called Jose, which nobody calls him, but most people are calling him Josiah.
I think his nickname is JoJo.
Well, we're getting many permutations of his name. He got banged up a little bit. Bryce Harper, who is, I found out interestingly today, leads the major leagues in all on-base percentage. I've said to Mitch a few times. He played here. Like a lot of Nationals fans, we weren't happy that he chose to go to our mortal enemy, 100 miles up the road, 200 miles up the road. But to be fair to Harper, Harper has had one of his better seasons, particularly since the All-Star game. And he is the only player in Major League Baseball with an over 1,000 OPS. Unfortunately, he has 58 runs batted in because, for whatever the reason, Girardi can't find anybody to hit well enough to get on base in front of him. So, Mitch, you raised the question a few minutes ago to me, why is he batting second? One of the reasons Soto batted second here, one of the reasons Aaron Judge started his career batting second with the Yankees, it's to decrease the number of people coming up immediately in front of you who can make outs.
Okay, but here's the deal. When you've got a stud like Harper, and I have him on one of my legacy teams, when you have a stud like Harper, you got to let him drive in 125 runs. You can't afford to have Bryce Harper out there with all that power and have him driving in 60 runs. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I've never managed even a little league team, but it seems to me when you've got a guy the OPS potential of Harper, which is 450 to 480, why not bat him fourth or fifth or sixth in the lineup? Put him in a place in the lineup where he's more likely to come up with somebody on. He's coming up most times. Sure, the first inning he's coming up with the leadoff hitter and the number 2 hitter. That started out to be Herrera and Hoskins, who's now I guess is out for the season. But okay, he's not getting the hitting in front of them. He's coming up often with the 8, 9, and 1 hitters preceding him, or the 9, 1, and 2 hitters preceding him, and they're lucky if they get one of them on base.
Well, you have a bandwidth problem going on there. It's not going to keep us from doing the podcast, but you're frozen half the time. Your picture's all blurry, and you're frozen, and it looks like a bandwidth issue to me. I'm not a wirehead, but that's what it looks like to me.
I don't know.
We are hearing you. So let's talk about these September call-ups.
Well, do you want me to sign off and sign back on?
No, that's too much. No, that's too risky. We'll just keep rolling. We can hear you fine. So September 1st is the day for the call-up. Andrea sent me a link today because you and I were talking this afternoon.
It used to be 40, but I think it's 28 now.
No, Andrea says it can be up to 40 if I read her note right. And
well, then the guys on the fan got it wrong today because they had the same argument on the fan, and they maintained that under the existing rules, it's only 28. So I'm confused.
Okay, well, let me go to the link that Andrea sent me.
A linkity-link and a rinkety-dink and a linkety-dink.
In a typical season, any player who is on the 40-man roster or the 60-day injured list as of 11:59 Eastern Time tomorrow night is eligible for the postseason. Those on the restricted list at that point are also eligible if they haven't been suspended for performance-enhancing drugs, aka Ramon Laureano.
But there would have to be an arbitrary number, or every major league team would have a different number of players, and people would be complaining, he's got 3 more players to work with than I do. If you base it on those kind of criteria, there must be an absolute number.
There is. What Andrea sent me says anybody on the 40-man roster is eligible to be called up. That doesn't mean you can have 40 guys sitting on the bench. What it means is you can take anybody off your 40-man roster. The postseason roster rules say the team submit a 26-man roster prior to each round of the postseason comprised of postseason eligible players. A club can then request from the commissioner's office to replace a player who is injured during the course of the series. So let's say we are in the 5-game playoff and Houston is playing the White Sox and Alex Bregman has another hamstring issue and can't play. My interpretation of this, is that Houston could go to the commissioner's office and try to bring in an infielder to replace Bregman based on that injury. It says a club may request permission from the commissioner's office to replace a player who is injured during the course of a series, but that player is then ineligible for the next round, if there is one. So let's say Houston's in a 5-game playoff with the White Sox and Houston wins. Let's say that Bregman pulled a hamstring and can't play for a week, so they replace Bregman with whoever. Doesn't make any difference. According to this, what this says, that if you cannot play that player in a subsequent series, so how would you like to be Dusty Baker going into a 7-game playoff with the New York Yankees and you can't play Alex Bregman, who's now taking care of the hamstring issue and he could play? So that's what it says. It's a little bit complicated, actually.
Well, the spin rotation in my head now would exceed probably Jake DeGrom's on that rule. I thought. Well, I think what you're telling me, all teams have a 40-man roster, but in the regular season.
But you're not going to have 40 people.
You're not going to have 26 plus 14 people on the bench, but that's during the regular season. But I think what you're telling me is that when you assign or report to the league your roster for, say, the divisional series or whatever, one of the playoff series, you can pick your 26. I thought it was 20, but moved up to 28. That's what people say.
Merle, and I'm looking for data.
But you can pick from among the people who were on the 40-man roster. You can swap in and out to the extent you want to.
On September the 1st, active rosters expand, which allows a club to activate, suit up, and deploy any player on its 40-man roster. That doesn't say you can have 40 players on the bench.
Okay. Well, you don't mean the bench. You mean, it doesn't mean you can have 40 active players in uniform. You can't have a 40-person active roster.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So
I got it.
The question is, let me give you an example for the Cubs. They went to the playoffs last year, and they picked up an outfielder by the name of Austin Jackson. Remember him? I'm testing
Austin Jackson, your
medulla oblongata on this one. He
Austin
was a pretty decent outfielder in his day.
He was a fair outfielder. I believe he actually played for a time with the New York Yankees.
The Cubs picked up Austin Jackson from the Mariners August 31st of last year, and Jackson went on to play in 5 playoff games for the Cubbies. However, infielder Darwin Barney was not postseason eligible for the Blue Jays because they acquired him from the Dodgers on September the 13th. Now that makes sense. So he was not on the 40 roster list on August 31st at midnight.
Oh, or maybe he was just a victim of one of Major League Baseball's Darwinian rules.
What's that?
Nothing.
So,
I threw that pork chop past you, bro.
right,
Never mind, right. I take it back.
So the thing is, tonight you've got, I want to move on to another topic here, which we've got 8, which we may cover in 20 minutes at the rate you and I go. But listen,
well, if we run out of baseball topics, we can return to the agenda of what we did in college bars.
Whoops. Yeah, I don't think we want to do that.
Well, the answer is not much.
Did you see Javier Baez and Francisco Lindor, upon hitting home runs against the Nats yesterday, while running around the bases, gave the fans big, ostentatious thumbs down gestures?
Here's how I feel about that. I really don't have many strong opinions about anything. I do not favor booing players. I'm not a person who boos. Well, maybe I booze, but I don't boo with an S.
Booze meaning B-O-O-Z-E, not B-O-O-S.
Well, here's the thing. You're talking about Javier Baez, who comes to New York, so he's in the limelight, and he comes there carrying or getting when he gets there, or retaining when he's there, $11.5 million to play. The major league players have had to, every sport, learn how to deal with the media, which, by the way, is not a whole lot of fun, and a lot of them hate it. But you also are the king of the hill. And when you're the king of the hill, and when you're a public figure, I don't particularly subscribe to the fact that it was paying fans the chance, that right, because they bought a ticket to abuse you. As I say, booing is as much a part of baseball as apple pie and cherry pie.
I'm going to disagree with you on this. The fans buy their tickets, and they have every right to boo until they booed themselves into oblivion. The players are well paid, and when you go into the New York City market, if you're a baseball player, I don't care how much money you make. Look at Sonny Gray when he went to Yankee Stadium. He fell apart. I can give you a list as long as your arm. When you go into the New York City market, or Philadelphia, which is famous, if you're not performing, those fans are going to.
I think we're the same thing. You're protecting the king of the hill. I didn't say the fans couldn't boo. I said it's not my style.
No, I can't remember ever booing anybody. But what I'm saying,
it's not my style. I'm not saying the fans don't have a right to boo, of course, to boo. But of course, obviously, I don't think anybody agrees they have a right to throw beer out at players and paper cups and call them names. Booing happens.
You cannot use racial epithets. You cannot engage in abusive language, but you have the right to boo. And Sandy Alderson,
I understand.
Sandy Alderson, the president, I think he's called the president of baseball operations, is extremely
Sandy Alderson.
He said the fans pay for their tickets The team has absolutely tanked, but we don't know. First of all, when you lose Jacob deGrom, you haven't had the biggest break luck in the world, but the fans are unhappy. But this is what happens, and we're going to talk about this issue next, and that's minimum salary. The fans, I have a theory. This started with Alex Rodriguez with the Texas Rangers. I have a theory that I can't prove because I haven't collected data, and even if I could collect data, I couldn't prove it. I have a theory that when you have a player who's being paid 10 to 20 times more than anybody else on the roster, you have just bought a player at $35 million a year, and you have bought a clubhouse problem. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I agree.
And
I agree.
Listen to me. The Nationals are going to give Soto $30 million a year, which
no, they're not, because actually, can I just interject? 30 won't be enough. He's one of the 5 best players in baseball. If the Mariners want to give him $30 million a year, of which they'll want to defer $15 million of that, like they did with Scherzer, they're going to lose him to somebody else. It's crazy. I really believe the salary structure is out of whack. I'm not against capitalism. I'm not against people making whatever they can make. But pity the poor fans that are being asked, some of the stadiums I know of are being asked to pay incredible prices to get a seat. Well, then guess what? Guess whom you priced out of the baseball park? You priced the guy who fixes pipes and fixtures, house fixtures, the plumber who's got a wife and 3 kids and can't go to the stadium in Cleveland, can't take them out to a game on Saturday because for 5 of them, it'll probably cost $300. And that's a shame.
You know full well now, for 4 or 5 years running, I have taken 2 or 3 grandsons.
I've joined you for that. I've joined you for that.
I've taken my 3 grandsons, my son, and you to either Camden Yards or Nats Park. And it has cost me on an average for that one game, because we're driving up here 3 hours from the Richmond area. So I get a hotel room, and I need to get 2 rooms at the Hampton Inn. I buy the tickets. I pay for the parking. I pay for their Cokes and hot dogs. It costs me in the neighborhood of $1,000 to go to a game. Well, these guys want to scream they're not being paid enough. Okay?
Right.
It pisses me off.
I get that.
That pisses me off. Well, I'm taking $1,000 out of my pocket to take my family to a game, and they're bitching they're not paid enough, and that pisses me off.
Well, let me make you feel better. What do you think is a ceiling setting contract that I know of, that I'm conversant with in professional sports? You and I are having a conversation of either Soto gets 30 or it doesn't. The 30 is ridiculous. Rendon's getting 32 and a half, I think it is. And what did they get? 50 games out of him? Who's the guy who's a 3-point shooter for the Golden State Warriors? Those Warriors of 2 or 3 World Championships. Stefan Curry. You do know that a contract that he just signed in its 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th years are pressing to 47.5, 48.5, and 50.5 million a year. What do you think a ticket's going to be for a bowl seat in San Francisco in the next few years?
Okay, let's talk about.
Does he need? I'm not picking on the guy. He's a great player. But let me emphasize. I would be the last one to stand in the way of anybody, man, woman, child, although we don't embrace child labor anymore, thank God, getting as much money as he and she or she can get in a free enterprise capitalistic economy. But the prices that are being paid, the cost of signing, keeping, retaining, whatever, the top talent is just It's mind-bending. It's mind-bending to me. Just, does anybody really need $50 million a year?
Well,
I guess so.
It's capitalism. I will defend to my last breath the right.
Well, I said that.
I don't believe in price fixing. I don't believe in the government telling you how much you can make. But I want to talk about elasticity of demand. There is one product in America that has relatively no elasticity, meaning as the prices go up under the theory of elasticity of demand, as the prices go up, one expects the ticket sales to go down, other things being equal. The exception being a pack of cigarettes, which Lenny and Andrea can tell me, I don't think either of them smoke, but they live up in the New York metro area.
Well, I think it's about $150 for a carton up there.
I think it's around $13, $14 a pack.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is this. We're not having a discussion about cigarettes. We're having a discussion about elasticity of demand. How high can we raise the cost of going to a game before we make it unaffordable for Joe's six-pack and his 4 kids?
I would argue that in many major league sports arenas, that's already happened. I won't even cite baseball. I'll cite the National Basketball Association. My stepson and I went to a Wizards game here last year. Actually, you and I went to one, and I got a good deal on tickets. But if you want to go to an NBA game and sit and be befuddled by, amazed by, and blown away by the size and the athleticism of these players, defined as I'm getting a seat in the lower bowl, or I'm getting something even better. I'm getting a seat on the sideline. Do you know how much it is?
Probably $600-800.
Double or triple that.
Okay, so I'm going to get off from this, Merle, but I want to make one more example. You know, my grandson Jonathan went to UVA.
I do.
So I told Jonathan I want to come up to J.P. Jones Arena. I want to go to a UVA basketball game with you. And I got tickets that were around $50 a piece, which I thought was right pricey for a college basketball game. Do you know?
Well, you know, if it's a big time, if it's a Division I,
it's ACC
team, the one NCAA, I don't think that's really outrageous.
How much were the seats down near the floor?
Well, here again, premium seats.
$400.
Well, I'm sure. I'll bet you anything. There was not a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior at the University of Virginia who could just take that out of his or her petty cash box.
No. The students there had a different program. I'm talking about the people, the parents, the grandparents.
To be fair about it, the university, yes, the university, they do.
And I'm okay with that. But,
okay.
But let me move on to the second issue here, because it's amazing where the time goes. It's 8:30 already. Do you agree with the reported proposal by MLB to the Major League Players Association to enforce a $100 minimum payroll effective in the next collective bargaining agreement as a measure to discourage tanking? And what is tanking, by the way? Maybe we need to decide. Do we agree to what's the evidence of a team tanking?
I don't know what it is, but I know what it isn't. What it isn't is to accuse or suggest or to attempt to penalize a team in a market like Pittsburgh for tanking. Or even you could say Tampa Bay, because the attendance they get. I know most of the money is made in television broadcast rights, but attendance, money made on the concourse, it all adds up to whatever the revenue stream is for the team. I don't necessarily believe that teams of $65 and $75 million payrolls, or in the case of the Pirates, I think maybe I've got the wrong team. There's a team out there that had $48 million payroll this year. You cited it, and I can't remember which team.
Here's a test question for you. How many teams in 2021 have a payroll of under $100 million?
12.
Hey, well, where'd you get that from?
I do my homework. Listen, but I can't keep up with Mr. I can't keep up with Mr. Douglas Boyle. Douglas, you are the guru. You can't throw a pork chop past Doug. Not on these things.
Yeah, you're right. We've got to get up extra early in the morning and get ahead of.
No, it's not early. There's not enough early morning hours to get up and beat him to the punch.
Douglas is out at the dog track tonight playing poker, and I was gambling one time when I got married, and it cured me.
You said that last week, and I want to know why you're not in divorce court. What's going on? Don't they have a free, unfettered working press there in Colonial Heights? You said that in a public setting. I never mind.
I don't say it close to my lovely wife will be 55 years we've been married on September the 8th. So I don't normally make.
Well, I'm catching up with you. If you take my 3 marriages combined, I've got 32.
Wow. It's awesome.
Never mind.
So here's my question. And it's a tough question.
Yes, sir. By the way, I have to interject something. Time out. I fiddled with a computer, and I think if you look, you'll see the resolution on my part is better than it was.
What did you do?
I'm not going to say that, but just tell me if it doesn't it look clearer?
It is better.
Thank you. Boy, I tell you, I hated to waste that Budweiser.
Alert the media. Here's the question, and I don't know the answer, so I probably shouldn't ask you, but I like to stick it to you if I get a chance and whatnot.
Well, that's true.
What's the difference between tanking and doing a rebuild?
Well, if you consider the likeness of those two concepts, rebuilding and tanking, if you consider that the purpose is to get younger, to get your team younger, to improve your farm system, to improve even to the extent you're selling off like Washington and the Chicago Cubs did. If the purposes match, then they words virtually match. So what I'm saying is, if you have this kind of contract proposal for the next Major League Baseball contract, I think it runs out, the current one expires at the end of the 22 season. If for some reason this proposal is in there, I believe obviously the Major League Players Association will be all for it because it will enhance player salaries. What I'm saying is making a distinction in terms of administrative fiat or supervision of the owners by the league office, if making a distinction between rebuilding and tanking can be as cavernous and narrow a framework of thinking and thought as those words, tanking and rebuilding, I wonder how enforceable it could be. And I also do not wonder the extent to which these kinds of challenges that they come to, some amount of team is decided upon for its payroll. If the challenges do come, they will ultimately end up in court anyway.
All right, let me give you the Washington Nationals. I'm going to bring them up. Andrea is in the chat room, and she says the rosters only expand from 26 players to 28. So we were
That's
right.
What I thought.
It's 28 on September 1st. but you can
manipulate within the 40 roster framework as to which 28 players you present as your team for, say, the LCS. Can you not?
Want to say hello to shout out to Lenny was in the chat room. Andrew is in the chat room, has joined us.
It's honored to have them there.
Hello to Ed Heckman. Ed, it's a joy to have you there. I wish I could have joined you in your suite. If you offer that again next year, I'll try to make the journey up to Baltimore. Mal Pal, how are you doing? We're delighted to see you here. You need to go down there and kick the Padres' butts and tell them to get their act together. And Ed Heckman says he's doing a fantasy football draft. And, man, I can identify with that. But let me get back to this tanking versus rebuild. So let me throw out a notional scenario for the 2022 Washington Nationals.
I want this to be as aspirational as notional, please.
Okay, point number one, no one gives a rip, but I am not happy that they let Trey Turner go, who's only 28, maybe 29. I'm not happy that they let Schwarber go, but I understand it. He was on a walk year. But here, let me present this to you. This is my argument using the Nationals for an example of the difference between tanking and a rebuild.
Yes, sir.
A rebuild can go on concurrently with your effort to compete. So let me cut to the chase. We will know if the Nationals are tanking instead of rebuilding if they add at least a couple of mid-tier free agents over the
You're talking somebody in the
agree with that?
Yeah, you're talking, I believe, if they add an outfielder, say an outfielder and in a 1 to 3 spot, a rotation pitcher, which would be probably in the range of $15 million for 3 years, I would say then you could not say they were tanking.
That's sort of
where they did that. So, what my argument is, the difference between tanking and rebuilding, for whatever the nomenclature or the anomaly of it all, the difference is subtle. And I'm talking about the law, and I'm talking about organized labor and a collective bargaining contract and the establishment of baseball. I'm talking about the possibility that you could end up in a big wrangle over this legally.
But let me bore you with one example. If you were Mike Rizzo and you knew that Wainwright, who's turning 40, is available for $10 million.
You disagreed with me off the air, and I get your disagreement. I said, if I'm as bad as that Nationals pitching rotation is, I don't care how much we're rebuilding. If this guy has learned the great Maddox pitch and can come in here next year and pull a Tom Brady, I'd put him in the 4th spot of the rotation and let him win 15.
So listen, but
that's not exactly building a younger team.
No, but what I'm saying is you can have what I would call a hybrid model. That's not a pure rebuild where you don't bring in anybody because they're over 30 years old and you can't compete. You can maybe bring in 2 or 3 players that makes it. Look, let's make something crystal clear. The Nationals are not going to the playoffs next year. The Nationals probably aren't going to the playoffs the year after next. But I'm telling you that the Nationals got 2 outstanding prospects in Gray and Ruiz, and they are getting, when they won the World Series, they're the oldest team in baseball. Okay? And it was wonderful. And I'll never forget it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But they had to get younger. All I'm saying is, and I want to beat this to death like a horse, all I'm saying is they can move forward with this youth movement. Like I wanted them to get Gavin Lux in the deal for Scherzer, and you and I have talked about this several times.
Let me go back to the bar, if I may. I don't mean the bar you're thinking of. I mean the legal implications of this. If I want to pretend I'm the general counsel for the owners of the Washington Nationals, and I'm dealing in an environment where Major League Baseball and the Players Union sign a CBA that includes something, I call it a cheapskate tax. They call it a new floor on team payrolls. But if I want to inoculate myself, if my owners tell me find a way to inoculate us from Major League Baseball having a way of enforcing $30 million luxury floor, a cheapskate tax on us because we only spent $70 million for the payroll. And my lawyer goes to court, whatever venue it is, at whatever the level it is, in the judiciary, and goes to court and says, excuse me, Your Honors, we signed 3 premier free agents over the winter. So you're trying to enforce a provision that suggests we're paying a tax, a punitive tax for tanking when we're trying to upgrade the team. So here's my inoculation. Wear it.
Carter Keyboom just went yard, by the way.
I like the kid. You know what? Let me just interject something that's off our subject. You get few advantages when a team decides to sell, so I'm not going to say tank. A team decides for whatever the reason to do a sell-off by July 30th or whatever that deadline is. But there's something you gain and you see it. You can see it in the Washington Nationals. This kid could not hit anywhere in the major leagues and actually struggled in Fresno a little bit last year. He put up decent statistics, but not the kind of year that you would expect from the man you keep calling the best prospect you have in your system. But when these trades were consummated, July 30th, and when the Bugs were swept out of National Stadium in terms of several high salaried players, and when it became clear the team was probably acknowledging, although quietly, even silently, that it was not going to contend for the National League division or anything else, Keyboom went into play third base and came under far less pressure. I am now the third baseman, and I think you see it in the results he's hitting.
He is improving greatly.
Did you see what happened to their shortstop tonight? They have no luck. They probably lost their shortstop, who their booth announcer, Bob Carpenter, and his partner, F.P. Santangelo, called arguably. I know we all talk about Soto, and Bell's done some better hitting since the All-Star break. But he hit a ball right off his kneecap and went rolling around on the ground and could not get up unassisted.
Alcides
Escobar.
Yeah, you're right.
When he came to bat, he was batting .288. He's been one of the. You don't understand the guy's going in there and he's playing for Trey Turner. He's playing for a guy in this city. Arguably, you can't go Soto wild on Turner, but very nearly as popular as Juan Soto, and has been really the most consistent performer they have. Well, it looks like he took a really bad injury.
Yeah, well, when Mike Rizzo, the GM, signed Escobar, I mocked Rizzo.
I did too. He was
Trey Turner, and you get Escobar hasn't played in 2 years, and you're right, he has been outstanding.
He was on the 2015 Kansas City championship team, right. And he played some for Atlanta before Dansby Swanson matured into the player he's become, which is terrific. That's another side issue. But this is a loss to a team. Are they going to win 80 games? No. Are they going to win 70 games? Probably not. But you lost your number 2 hitter in the lineup. And
okay, so can we move on to the next topic?
yes, sir. All right.
Well, I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm really not. We got several topics.
All is fine.
We're both interested in. Here's the next topic. Are the rules that MLB put in place to shorten the length of the games, aka a relief pitcher has to pitch to a minimum of 3 batters. You put a runner on second base in the 10th inning to start the inning. Are they having, and you go to 7-inning doubleheaders. Are the rules having the desired effect?
No. And in part, they're not, because the rules don't address one of the greatest causes of dragging games out. Although, frankly, stolen bases are way down. Stolen bases, it's a shame. It's a shame for baseball. Shame on you. Shame on the baseball establishment. We can't see anybody run. Shame on the baseball establishment. We see at least a half dozen teams that have scored 50% of the runs they've scored in the season have come from home runs. Shame on the baseball establishment for doing reruns or reviews of stolen base attempts. Another reason you hold up the game for 5 minutes. Let the umpire call the runner in or out. Abner Doubleday is turning over in his grave, and you don't have to be labeled one of the game's greatest purists to believe a couple of things about shortening the length of the game. One is, I know through generational divide, and one generation succeeds the other, and a new generation succeeds that. And I know we're in a generation and a time where I'd rather read whatever my content is to become informed in a 142 character tweet than a 450 word book. I know that. I know we all want things to happen faster, but let me tell you something about the fascination of the game of baseball. The fascination of the game, in no small part, is how methodical it is. That's part of the fascination.
Let me make a statement. You know how loath I am to express an opinion.
Absolutely.
Your chances of getting a date with Rihanna before 10 o'clock tonight are greater than a baseball player.
It's so nice to see you. my brother is Gene Dixon.
Your chances of getting a date, assuming that you could handle a date with Rihanna, which I question. I also question if I could handle a date, but that's neither here nor there. My statement is your chances of getting a date with Rihanna tonight are about the same as having a player steal a base that is not revealed by the umpires and the MLB New York, wherever it is in damn Secaucus, New Jersey, or wherever the office is. Every stolen base that I've seen, I can't remember a stolen base.
I just said that. I just said there are so many reasons to speed up the game. And in part, I said to you earlier today, I get that. I understand that theoretically. But if you look, I don't know how to make this determination. And I'm not going to stop in everybody's tracks here and try to Google it while we're doing this show. But I'd be willing to say to you, I would be willing to guess. I'm thinking about the 16-inning game the Dodgers won against San Diego the other night. I'd be willing to say to you there aren't that many extra inning games. If you sit down and think about it, there really aren't that many. I could be wrong.
I did try to research this. I did a Google search to look for data.
Right.
I'm sure MLB has it, okay?
I tried there and I got nowhere.
I tried to find if there's any data on the average length of a game in 2021.
Did you try Baseball Reference?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Oh, but what I'm trying to say is, while these measures if you'll do me a favor, I know you watch baseball every day, so do I, more than one game a day. If you will look, from time to time, they will put the camera in the stands, and if you will look real closely, you will see a fair percentage of the fans on their cell phones looking at their TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram instead of watching the game. Do they have that right? They have that right. But what I'm saying is,
go ahead. I have a better counter to that. If you look through the stands at a soccer match, an NBA game, a National Hockey League game, women's basketball, women's NBA game, anything, everybody's always on their phones, whether it's a slow game like baseball or whether it's the NBA.
All right, that's fair enough. So what I'm asking you is this. I think that MLB exacerbated this problem with the instant replay, because it's like when you start trying to lose weight, it starts out reasonable, then it goes crazy and you can't eat anything. It started out with, you're going to use instant replay for very close contested balls at first base.
Right.
Now you're going to use instant replay for a stolen base. Then you're going to use an instant replay for a ball that the guy catches. Is it over the fence or under the fence?
Yeah.
The data I would like to see is how much time is used during a game with instant replay.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Now, I would tip my cap to baseball on one speeding up the game change they made, which is the only one unequivocally, I believe, has been beneficial to putting some level of rhythm in the game without changing the nature of the game, which is strategy and, yes, methodical thinking. One thing, the only thing, the rule change that seems to have worked wonderfully is limiting the number of visits catchers can make to the mounds. That's been great.
Yeah. I'm going to give Major League Baseball a shout out on something else too.
Okay.
I flipped a lid when they started inspecting the pitchers' belts and gloves.
It has worked as well.
They have handled this
with some aplomb.
Aplomb. You're right. You took the word right out of my mouth. So here is my question to you.
And the pineapple too. And an apple in the eye and a cherry for your thoughts.
Here is my question to you. If the cheating with the sticky substances, such as what do they call it? Some kind of bear. I don't know.
No, you're thinking about the bear spray stories from January 6th. You're stuck in another corner of your universe.
There was something the players were supposed to be using that was bear something. But here's my question. If the cheating was egregious and widespread, and we've had only one or two, maybe a half a dozen pitchers cited, then there's only one or two alternative answers. Alternative A, there was less cheating going on than hypothesized.
Correct.
Alternative B, the pitchers stopped doing it when they realized they were going to be checked at the end of the inning.
Alternative 3, the cumulative batting average of Major League Baseball players has barely moved the meter at all. If there's some validity to that premise, if there was cheating or substance use, if not abuse, I don't know if it was significant enough in the first instance to have been a factor in I think what is in 2021 maybe the lowest aggregate Major League Baseball batting average in a long, long time.
I do try to pay attention, bro, to what people say in the chat room because I'm so happy to have them there, and I know you are too.
Absolutely, I agree.
Malpal's asking, do the Orioles have some hope for next year? And I gotta say to Malpal and say to you, I think the Orioles have more young hitting talent right now than the Nationals.
All right, who's the leadoff hitter?
Mullins, super.
Okay. How many home?
Let's compare Mullins to Victor Robles.
Well, okay, wait a minute. I'm not going to go down the lineups, but I'm just going to tell how many players they have on the current starting lineup that are going to be fixtures. They have Santander, who's been playing with an injury, but everybody knows he's a potential. I believe Santander is a switch hitter. Santander is going to be there. Ryan Mountcastle has something like 24 homers and 73 runs batted in. He's going to be there. Trey Mancini has slowed down in the second half, but his cumulative statistics for the year are going to be pretty good. Hey, Austin Hayes has not lit the world on fire, but he's played well enough to have maybe 10 or 11 home runs and 55 runs batted in. They've got the nucleus. I keep saying Pedro Severino is an underrated catcher. They've got the nucleus of a starting lineup next year. What they do not, they don't have rotation strength in that pitching staff.
No, that's an issue. But they do have Adley Rushman, who I believe is at North.
Well, here's a new catcher coming in.
He's generally considered to be the best pitching, catching prospect in baseball, better than K. Barrett Ruiz.
Right, that's right. So we've identified 6 of the 8, well, it's American League, I guess, 6 of the 9 players in the starting lineup next year. I think they have a better prospectus, at least on the playing field, not the pitching staff necessarily, but they have a better outlook for 2022 than Washington.
That's my assessment.
I agree.
That's my. Now, can we play some fact or fiction?
Okay.
I'll a statement. You tell me if it's fact or fiction, and you tell me why.
Okay.
Mike Trout will come back in September and be a productive outfielder for the month of September. Fact or fiction?
Fiction, mostly because the team is not in a pennant race and they're not going to take the risk of shortening the man's career. We know there are people who argue still with the superstars of Tatis and Guerrero and Soto and all of them that he is still, when healthy, as good a player as there is in baseball. I say fiction. I say he doesn't play.
Fact or fiction? For Fernando Tatis, since he was moved to the outfield, has seen his hitting go down.
There are 2 things to say about that. One is, it's true. There are 2 factors that I believe that play into this. Number one, the San Diego Padres haven't necessarily been enthralled with his play at shortstop. Okay? Number 2, one of the harshest things to do with field or position players in baseball, in my opinion, often this cannot be avoided, and there are versatile players like Chris Bryant, who can play the outfield, the infield, third base, or first base. This kid, he's a veteran. Harrison, who got traded from here to the Oakland A's, can do it. Many players can. Tatis is not. So he comes back from a shoulder injury, and all of a sudden we're going to make you an outfielder, and you don't have to watch more than a couple San Diego Padre games to see that young man. I can't get into his mind and say if he's unhappy having to learn to play the outfield. But if you look at the body language compared to the body language you saw as the hitting and fielding, yes, occasional error. I think he's made 10 errors this year at shortstop. This changing of position for Tatis, I think, adversely affected his hitting a great deal. And I also think, notwithstanding the dipsy-doo in their starting rotation, I think it's a factor in the Padres practically now being not even in the wild card race.
Fact or fiction? Clayton Kershaw comes back and becomes an effective pitcher in the postseason.
Fact. And what stuns me, what's absolutely...
Fact or fiction?
I said fact.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I said, what stuns me is that this team loses its number one starter, who's probably a Hall of Fame selectee. They lose their number two starter, who's the highest paid player in Major League Baseball. And they're still 2.5 games out of first place. And they could very well overtake the Giants. I believe what happened is when Bauer was suspended from baseball by Major League Baseball, I believe the very opposite of Kershaw's use by the team, the very opposite. You would think Kershaw would have been coaxed or cajoled or whatever, urged to try to play through lower back soreness, if that's what the issue was. I've heard other issues. I believe the team figured it had enough talent in the minor leagues and could start bullpen games occasionally and get by until Kershaw had been able to rest for at least a month, which I believe he's done now. The question with me with Kershaw is, are we going to see him pitch in the regular season at all? If he doesn't pitch at all in the regular season, I'm not sure he can march into the playoffs as the flamethrower he used to be. But I think it's a fact that he will come back and pitch.
Fact or fiction? Corey Seager re-signs for the Dodgers.
Fiction. They like Trey Turner's game a lot better. And it is also true, although quite ironic, that one of the front office complaints or objections that I've read about Seager is too many throws to first base in the dirt, too many plays where runs have to be saved by almost Herculean scoops by the first baseman. Is there anything that defines Trey Turner more than that? How many errors would Trey Turner have had in the last couple of years? I can't say this because Eric Thames was there. I can't say it that this was true because Josh Bell is their first baseman. But any game in which Ryan Zimmerman played first base, Turner could throw the ball anywhere and Zimmerman would get it.
Fact or fiction? The Nationals bring Max Scherzer back next year.
You know, this revives the conversation about Adam Wainwright. As much as he is adored, here even revered, I think ownership may say to themselves, even if the opportunity presents itself, that this plays too heavily. You bring the line of the team back, but plays too heavily against the narrative of getting younger and rebuilding. So I say fiction.
All right. Fact or fiction? The Yankees have sufficient 1, 2, and 3 top 3 starters to compete in a 7-game playoff with the Houston Astros or the Chicago White Sox.
Fiction. The Yankees have Garrett Cole and the left-hander I saw last night.
Montgomery.
And after that, I'm struggling to identify who that reliable number 3 is. And let me just take the White Sox. Paul, you suggested, in a series with the White Sox, they got Giolito, they got Lance Lynn, they got the lefty who's had one of the best seasons of any pitcher in baseball. His name is eluding me. Rodon? Rodon?
Rodon. Right.
Okay, Rodon.
And who
Keiko has been off, but Dylan Cease has made up for Keiko's weakness. Dylan Cease, he's 11-5.
Dylan Cease has the highest strikeout ratio for 9 innings in Major League Baseball.
More than Rodon?
Cease.
Really?
Yes. He's going to be a
and
superstar.
desist.
He's going to be a superstar. Fact or fiction? Yes, Manny Grandel is going to end up with 25 home runs.
How many does he have?
A third of the year.
How many does he have now?
17 or 18.
Fact. Fact, because now apparently he's healthy enough to play. Fact, because although he has always been a bit of an erratic hitter, he's got 30 games left. Fact, he's going to probably play at least 4 of every 7 games a week. Fact, that gives him 5 weeks to get only 7 home runs. So I'm saying fact.
Fact or fiction? The Cubs bring back 1 of the following 3 that they let go: Rizzo, Baez, or Bryant.
Fact.
Which one?
I think they're going to outbid the Giants to bring him back. They're going to see that after much debate within the framework of the hierarchy on that team, they're going to see they let a really valuable player go, particularly given how versatile he is in the field. I think it would be Bryant. Okay.
All right. Fact or fiction? Lewis, Robert, or Robert?
It's Louis Robert.
Louis Robert.
He is something, that guy.
Louis Robert goes 30-30 in 2022.
He's a slender Frank Thomas. He's a slender. He's the big hurt without a big belly. This guy. So what's your question again?
Fact or fiction? Louis Robert goes 30 home runs and 30 steals next year.
Fact. With one proviso, if he stays healthy most of the year. He has a tendency sometimes to miss time, but don't all the players now.
Fact or fiction? Eddie Rosario surges in September and becomes a major factor in the Atlanta Braves' run to the division title.
Fact, because of one reason. He's hungry. Fact, for reason number 2.
Well, he is a free agent at the end of the year.
Okay. Well, then, I'm assuming wherever he plays, your question is he's going to make a comeback.
Would you agree with me that
he's got a good level swing?
Would you agree with me that if you're a free agent who's been out for a good part of the season through no fault of your own due to injury,
right,
that you've got a chance in September to increase your chances of being signed as a free agent next year?
You're going to play. Yeah, exactly.
Eddie Rosario. Now
he had 29. He had 29 homers and 100+ runs batted in for the Twins. What, maybe 3 years ago? He can hit.
Full disclosure, he's on one of my teams. I'm pulling on him to propel me to a championship. So he's not going to be a miracle worker, but to me, he's better on defense than Duvall, Peterson, or Soler. Far better. He's also got speed. He's got 10 stolen bases.
Duvall would look amazingly great as a DH in Baltimore.
That's a good observation.
But here's the thing: one of these things I want to really gnaw down to the bone on the issue of DH at some point, not tonight. But Adam Duvall, is he a free agent at the end of the year?
I want to say yes, but I'm not absolutely sure.
I'm not either. Okay.
Fact or fiction? The Miami Marlins have the best combination of youthful, meaning under 28, youthful starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. Fact or fiction?
That's fact. I can't name all of them, but let me just pick one out of the heap.
Go ahead.
Sandy Alcantara. He's outstanding. You cited the other night the person they got from the Phillies for Real Muto. I think he's been injured all year. Sanchez, is that his name? He's an outstanding pitcher.
No,
you know
Sixto Sanchez will be back.
Sixto, not Lezcano. I remember Sixto Lezcano of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Okay, let me bore you with this.
Sixto Sanchez.
Let me bore you with this.
Yeah.
Sandy Alcantara, you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Taylor Rogers, who was all but unhittable most of the year.
Yes, sir.
Luzardo, who they got for Starling Marte, pitches 6 or 7 shutout innings yesterday. Eliezer Hernandez. I'm missing 2 or 3 people here.
They've got 7 or 8 of them. I can tell you they've got 7 or 8. There's a guy named Thompson. There's a guy named Thompson there who's good.
Thompson is good. And don't forget Edward Cabrera, who they just brought up, who is reportedly the best prospect in their system, which I don't believe he's better than Sixto Sanchez. I should have this, but I will tell you, in my humble opinion, it ain't close. They have the best crop of young starting pitchers now. Fact or fiction? The number 2 team in Major League Baseball with the best young pitching talent is the Detroit Tigers.
Well, I know A.J. Hinch probably appropriately took a real beating over the incident, the sign stealing. I almost did a spoonerism. I almost said Stein stealing in Houston, but he did an outstanding job with the Tigers. I have to say.
I'm just talking about raw, naked talent, under 28 years of age. Casey Mize, Manning, I think it's Manning, Scoboo, or Scoboo, however you say his name is. Did I say? I said Casey Mize, Manning, Scoboo. There's 2 or 3 other ones. The Tigers are no. While we're on the subject of the Tigers, you can take this to the bank. This is fact or fiction. I'm going to answer it.
Okay.
The Tigers are going to go out and get 2 or 3, mid-tier free agents this winter, and they're going to be a good team next year.
Okay, let me take you back quickly to the Marlins.
Right.
They need to move 2 or 3 of these young starters and get some position players and somebody in the lineup who can contact hit, run bases, and they will be a 3rd or 2nd place or division winning team next year if the young starters we've touted hold up. But they need to upgrade at least maybe 3 or 4 positions in the field, although they've got a couple of really good. This guy, Sanchez, I believe they have an outfielder named Sanchez who looks very promising. De La Cruz looks promising. They need a couple of free agent veterans to come in there and steady the 3 and 4, maybe 4 and 5 holes in the lineup.
Point well taken. All right, enough fact or fiction. Now I want to go into our last topic for the night. We got about 15 more minutes. I want to throw some names out to you. And my reference point is Lindy's Sports Fantasy Baseball 2021. The magazines are obsolete. We know that. Won't even bore you with that. But I have the mock draft from the Lindy's, a 20-round mock draft that had such, well, we'll talk about, is there such a thing as a fantasy expert? We'll talk about that in a minute. But had such people as Scott Pianowski. What's wrong?
Well, there is Douglas Boyle.
Okay, but the expert is almost like even a clock with a dead battery can be right twice a day. So even I could be an expert on some calls, but no matter who you are and how expert you are, I would respectfully submit to you that it's very difficult to predict success in baseball. This is aside from injuries. Now, I'm talking minus injuries. So what I'm going to go to is I'm going to give you a quiz on a 20-round mock draft back in February. And we'll give you some names and see if you can give me your estimate in 20 rounds where this player was taken. Starting with Jared Walsh, first baseman, Los Angeles Angels.
I'm not good at the draft, and I'll admit it. I would say Jared Walsh was
rounds. Just take a stab.
12th round.
He was taken number 18.
Okay.
Austin Riley, outstanding third baseman for the Atlanta Braves. 20-round mock draft in February. Where was he taken?
6th.
I beg your pardon?
6th round.
He was taken in round 20.
Swell. Are you trying to make me look bad?
No, I'm not trying. That's not the purpose of it.
I got my back cocked.
You can
roll that over the plate. I'm going to hit one of them. All I have to hit is 1 out of 10, and I can stay in the lineup like some of these guys.
No, you hit 3 out of 10, and you're a 300 hitter. I'm not doing this to embarrass you. I'm trying to make a point.
I'm flush. I'm flush with a lack of enthusiasm.
I'm trying to make a point at how hard it is.
What do you? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to embarrass you. Promise.
Okay.
I didn't even warn you about this.
Don't scuff up the. Don't scuff up the ball.
Alberto Mondesi. What round was he?
Was he related to Raul Mondesi?
I think he's the son of Raul Mondesi.
You know, Raul
he was
Mondesi.
traded by the Dodgers to the Blue Jays for Sean Green, one of our favorite.
You know
Dodgers.
that Raul Mondesi is in prison, do you not?
He is?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's not good, is it?
Had something to do with fraud. Maybe he's been released. But he did get a prison sentence. Okay. What round was Mondesi?
In 20 rounds.
15.
Round 3.
Doing this to make me look bad.
No,
it's not that hard to do.
No, I'm not trying to embarrass you because I would have guessed the same
But
thing.
I have many times in my life looked good in places where people couldn't tell if I was doing well.
It's easier when you're sitting here looking at the magazine. All right, I've harassed you enough. I will give you one more.
Okay.
Brother Jake Croninworth, arguably one of the best infielders in all of baseball. 20-round draft. Where was he taken?
What school did he play at? Wasn't he a Southern boy? Didn't he play at Tennessee?
That I don't know.
Oh, I don't either. I'm going to say 9th round.
You're getting better. He was taken in the 13th round, and it's one of the steals.
Really? Really?
Right. Hold on just 1 second. I got to remember what my...
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
To keep the audience entertained, I will tell you the history of the green wall in Fenway Park and which player who used to play for the Red Sox. Never mind. I think we did that 3 weeks ago. Okay, are you ready?
We're going to close out tonight with a closer update. No
Okay. Okay.
So I'm looking at some of these closers. Can you, off the top of your head, tell me some closers where the arrow is pointed up and some closers where the arrow is pointed down?
Okay, the arrow is up on Melanson. I believe the arrow is up on McGee. I believe the arrow is up on Losaiga. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but he has been outstanding for the Yankees. And so you said closers. They used him. They closed with him when Chapman was out. Right. So it's not really a good guy.
I'm going to give you credit. He's not a closer, but he's been an outstanding.
He has been outstanding.
He's been an outstanding.
Barnes, the arrow's way down on Barnes in Boston. The Barnes, yep, right. The arrow has gone down a little on Kendrick in Chicago and gone down a lot.
Wait a minute, Kendrick. Wait a minute.
Hendrick.
The White Sox.
What did I say? Yeah, the White Sox. Okay.
That's
the arrow is down on Kimbrel.
I think that's Liam Hendricks, isn't it? Is it Hendricks or
something like that? I've said it wrong. Right. The arrow is down on Daniel Bard.
Yep, you're right. Estevez, Vulture, they saved from him this weekend.
I beg your pardon?
The kid Estevez is vulturing saves from Bard.
Well, who else did you say? I would say the arrow is up on the Rays, but it's hard for me to identify who the Rays closer is, but they don't blow many games. I'm not sure I can give you the name of who the regular Rays closer is.
If you asked me to tell you who the Rays closer is, you'd have to take my beer away from me because I couldn't tell you.
The arrow is mostly up on Reyes in St. Louis, although he lost a game. He blew a game the other night, but he's got something like 29 saves. The arrow is up on the Dodger closer, who struggled at some point around early summer and after the All-Star break, but Jansen has come back. Seems even to have added some velocity, and he has 341 saves. He's like 14th in Major League Baseball history. So I'm giving him.
Good job. Very good job.
Okay.
You weren't sitting with a cheat sheet in front of you like I am. Let me give you a couple other people with their arrows up.
Okay.
Alex Coleman, who was traded to the Minnesota Twins,
and he's been a really up and down guy, but
because their closers have been injured, he has inherited the closing job, which was probably one of the reasons they traded for him. I watched the game today. Why are the Tigers playing on afternoon games on Monday? Can you explain that? I'm just a dumb kid. Can you explain to me why the Tigers?
I don't get that. There's something odd about it.
They're playing day games on Monday.
I have no idea.
But at any rate, Coleman comes in today. He's got I think he got his 8th save today. He's doing pretty well. He was awful, but they had it. Hansel Robles, who was traded to the Red Sox and may end up the Red Sox closer. Either Robles, Garrett Whitlock, or Ottavino are going to take the saves away from Barnes unless Barnes gets his act squared away. But Coleman is doing it. But today, that fool had 2 outs in the 9th inning against who the heck was it? Against the Twins? No.
I think they did play the Twins.
It was Minnesota versus Detroit. Coleman had 2 outs, nobody on base. He let a couple of guys, 2 ground balls got hit right back to him. And in both cases, he almost threw the ball in the dugout. He threw the ball so high that it pulled the first baseman off the bag and the runner was called safe. But at any rate, he did get the save. Another arrow up is Scott Barlow with Kansas City. Another arrow down is James Karinchak.
Karinchak.
With a
Karinchak.
Right.
Karinchak. Who's the Cincinnati closer? I think he's been pitching better.
No, they got Michael Givens from the Colorado.
Michael Givens, right?
Michael, whatever his name is. Yeah, and they have basically, I think they actually, the guy that was saving the Hembry is somewhere else now. I think Hembry's gone.
Yeah, Hembry got traded. He got traded to Baltimore. Hembry's with the Orioles.
Are you sure it's the Orioles?
Yes, sir.
All right. So after MLB's crackdown of foreign substances on the ball, James Karinchak has not been the same pitcher.
Uh-oh.
Interesting. Now, that doesn't prove cause and effect, but it does cause you to scratch your chin, right? After showing a ghastly 8.40 ERA and 1.80 whip ratio across 15 innings since the All-Star break, the Cleveland Guardians had enough and have sent him to AAA Columbus.
Okay.
Notice I say Cleveland Guardians. I did that for your benefit. Who are the you mentioned Daniel Bard. That was a good catch, very good catch, bro. Ian Kennedy has blown a save and allowed a couple of runs on Friday.
Ian Kennedy's arrow is not pointed directly downward, but is headed that way. And who's the closer for the Arizona Diamondbacks? Nobody of any distinction.
Tyler Clippard.
Well, actually, Tyler Clippard's been around forever.
Well, you asked the question. I'm just giving you the answer.
No, is he pitching well enough they've installed him as a closer?
He had done well. I think he got racked in a game this past weekend, but he's got 5 saves since they put him in the role.
So as early as 2011, Tyler Clippard and Drew Storen in Washington were Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yep.
How did Clippard's career last so much longer than Storen's?
Here's a quick review and we'll close out on this. Chapman is the first option in the New York with Loaisiga and Chad Green backing him up. Baltimore has a committee.
So where are they using Loaisiga?
Loaisiga, they're trying not to use Chapman on 2 or 3 days in a row, so they're bringing in Loaisiga, which makes sense.
Well, I'll say this for the kid. I haven't seen him come out and be ineffective in quite a while.
He's been excellent. Baltimore has a committee. There's no one starter. Tampa Bay has a committee. Andrew Kittredge, JT Charjois. Wasn't he with the Dodgers?
Charjois.
Well, Charjois, you too.
Well, Charjois.
Wasn't he with the Dodgers? He was. You can fact check me.
He was.
Matt Whistler. The Toronto Blue Jays traded for Brad Hand. Who's
that woman at CNN who stopped to ask George W. Bush a question at Bush's?
Suzanne.
Who?
Suzanne.
Yeah, okay. This woman was CNN, Suzanne Malveaux, I believe her last name, as in
Malveaux.
Country.
M-A-L-V.
Yeah, right. Okay. So she stands up to ask a question toward the end of Bush's swan song news conference, and he said, "Excuse me, before you ask your question, I have an apology to make to you. I've been mispronouncing your name as Susan all these years. I didn't know your name was Suzanne." And he turns away from the podium and looks to his left, and he says, "A lot of people don't know it, but my real name is George."
Well, on that happy note, shall we call it a night?
I think we probably Who's in the? Let's say goodnight to the chat room, people.
I think the chat room is.
Or has that been? Have we unpopulated the chat room?
The chat room is no. We still got people in there. The chat room is kind of like that famous Matt Dennis song that Frank Sinatra did so well. It's 3 a.m. and I'm all alone in the bar. It's late at night. I can't even think of the name of the damn song. You know what song I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't think you have.
It's on the album called Only the Lonely. I'm dating myself for sure.
You certainly are.
Well,
that's the same night. That's the same night he sang 3 songs that called Women Dames. He sang another song that talked about the gal who got away. He sang in languages that we don't speak anymore.
Well, good night and good luck.
Good night.